And we are back here at Theory of Mind. I'm Carl Carson, Matt Wolfboy Wells. We had a wonderful conversation. Matt is genuinely a good guy. We had a little bit of a technical issue, so I could lie and say to people like, "Hey, I decided for a depth of field to like change the video for." No, it's just like I don't know what I'm doing. That's really it.
That's legit.
Like I'm okay to show people that I don't know what I'm doing,
Of course.
but I'm going to get better at it next time and next time and next time.
Mhm.
What do you think about that? Are people self-conscious about being stupid?
Yeah, and off camera, we kind of had a little mini discussion about this, where I think we're both kind of on the same page, where people are starting to crave a bit more imperfection than the the stuff that we see on most magazines and most people's like YouTube channels. Facebook is a big one, or Instagram, where it's these polished pictures.
We see an
multiple
edited
filters.
world.
Yes, we're not seeing people at their worst, but even like we're starting to see even in sitcoms. So again, this is something I mentioned off camera. It was uh, a lot of the most popular sitcoms these days. I can think of a few off the top of my head, like Workaholics or It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. They don't have laugh tracks.
Did you know that that's only a North American thing?
I did not. I did not.
So
know
like in
that.
most European things, Central Scandinavian things, we don't have laugh tracks.
Right. Yeah. And I think we're
And
starting.
this is
to
a
look
terrible
at that
joke,
too.
and nobody take offense to it. But my grandfather always said, "Oh, they always put those laugh tracks in it because they have to tell Americans when to laugh because they don't know what funny is." That's a horrible thing to say, but do you know what I mean? That's the thing. So here's the problem with this. So Google and Facebook and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And this algorithm, and they show you what you want to hear. They show you what you want to talk about.
Yeah.
And you get stuck in this echo chamber.
Yeah.
When you get stuck in this echo chamber, you get this should we say, you get the self bias where you start to actually think that what you're saying is true.
Yeah.
And then you lose your self awareness.
Yeah.
I have two things that I came here that I'm hoping to work with.
Mhm.
Number one, I'm going to try to assume that the person sitting in front of me knows something that I don't.
Right.
And number two is I having conversation with you, not at you.
Mhm.
Maybe number three would be like I just want it to be real.
Yeah.
Like people want to think like we always want to get this illusion. So like I came here half an hour before, nothing worked, and I've tried a few cameras and a DSLR and a this and that, and it didn't work. And my first video was even more horrible than this video. But like putting yourself in a situation where you just don't know what you're doing, it's so valuable.
Yeah.
And like I don't want to see like a woman that doesn't have perfect teeth. Like one of them is a little bit off. It's beautiful.
Mhm.
A person that has a great complexion but a one scar. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And there is a Japanese concept that my brain can't pull up about right now. It says that like the beauty of things lies in the imperfection.
Mhm.
So sometimes they have maybe a pot. It's just a clay pot. There's a crack in it, and they fill it with gold
Mhm.
because the imperfection is more valuable and makes things more appealing.
Yeah.
So like South Korea and some place in Japan, having crooked teeth is appealing.
Well, funny enough, South Korea, Korea in general, I believe the statistic is still accurate, maybe a bit off, but it is the capital of plastic surgery. It is the number one plastic surgery place in the world. It's almost seen as like a graduation gift. So
Rite of passage?
A rite of passage, yeah. It's
Yeah.
when you're done high school, or I forget whether it's high school or whether it's like college or something like that. But that's something that's done for almost everybody. Like when they're done, that's something that they save up for, or their parents save up for, and they get plastic surgery, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what people think about this, but like I've been very lean and I've been very fat. Well, not very fat compared to a lot of people, but like what I'm trying to say is like I've had a few different looks, shaved, not shaved with a beard, and this is my perception. Is going to make me look like such a douche, but okay, maybe that's a part of who I am. It's like there's only one look that people truly find irresistible. Do you know what it is?
What's that?
The I actually like myself.
Mhm.
When you meet someone who actually likes themselves, They're pretty irresistible.
Well, it's funny. Like when we're in high school or when we're in junior high, we're always told that as a straight male, you always try to get the ladies,
Yeah.
and
I think that's accurate.
I think it's pretty accurate. So
Yeah.
we always ask, what's the best way to attract a lady, and we're always told like confidence. But for a lot of people, that's an abstract concept that we can't really like. How do I get more confident? Is a question that a lot of people usually ask. But I think that's the key. Is like you enjoy yourself, like you like who you are.
Dance
And
like
it shows.
nobody's watching.
Yeah, Footloose, man. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's from
Yeah.
Footloose, yeah. A lot of things rattling up in there. But that's kind of what I'm saying to people, and that's the most beautiful thing when you meet someone, they got that thing.
Yeah.
And everybody's trying to put the finger on it. And that's the thing that they got.
Mhm.
Where like everything from like cats to cars attracted to them. That's a person, kind of like Jerry Lee Lewis said. He said, I might not be a perfect person, but when I play the piano, I shine like gold.
Mhm.
And that's kind of a person that allows themselves to be themselves.
Mhm.
They kind of have that same, they shine like gold.
Well, going back to what we were talking about before, where people are starting to crave imperfections now, we see a lot of celebrities posting pictures of themselves not in like the most flattering outfits and no makeup on and stuff like that. It started to normalize a little bit more. Even if anybody's a rap fan, Kendrick Lamar has a whole song about that called "Humble." So
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's how it goes. Like here's this cultural observation. So Iceland didn't have anything back in the day. Then we became super rich. And then we became bankrupt. And then we became rich again. And now with the coronavirus, I don't know if we're going bankrupt again. But I can tell you what I saw happening. And I saw it happening like this.
Mm.
First, an island nation gets rich. Or money starts to go around. And everybody wants the new thing, the big thing, and the shiny thing.
Mm.
And everybody has enough money to buy the big thing, shiny thing, and so on. Then people start to buy vintage things.
Yeah.
They start to buy vintage things because the other monkeys can't buy it because they're not making it anymore because that's what makes them vintage.
Yeah.
So that's a good cultural observation of like, but what people are thinking about it is that we have this desire with status.
Mhm.
And you can have status from many different things. So you at your gym, if you squat 500 or 600 or whatever, you're a strong guy. You have a certain amount of status at your gym.
Mhm.
And if you're a big, strong, hairy guy with athletic prowess, you have a certain amount of status in a certain group. But if that same big, strong, hairy guy is in a group of intellectuals, he doesn't have the same status.
Mhm.
And we're like to think that in society that status is a universal thing. Status is very dependent on the group that you're in. So that's when like idiots are going around beating their chest and saying alpha.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying like, okay, in your particular thing that you're alpha in,
Mhm.
you're absolute beta or theta in something else.
Delta.
Or delta. It's so strange. Do you know what I mean?
And for people that come across like that, are they trying to convince other people that they're alpha, or is it more so they're trying to convince themselves?
Usually guys that run around, like all tougher guys who try to be alpha,
Mhm.
they're usually very beta.
Yes. The strongest guys in the gym that I've ever met are also the most humble. They are usually the people in the corner joking around with everybody else, like having a good time, like making everybody feel kind of comfortable in that environment. But when it's go time, and they outperform everybody.
Yeah, and it's hard to say like, and that's something that we maybe don't learn well in my culture in Iceland is this humble thing.
Mhm.
It's one of the profound things that I learned in life. There was a lady in her 60s, and she told me 4 years ago, your strength is your weaknesses.
Mhm.
Your greatest strength is your greatest weakness. And like it's been rattling around in my brain for 4 years, and I've been trying to think about it. And then like that's what I do. I think about things sometimes don't, unfortunately.
I've been there.
Yeah. And I think that's exactly where it is. It's like being humble is a good thing, but being too humble is a bad thing.
Mhm.
A great book about this is called The Dichotomy of Leadership. So if you're too humble, you're undecisive.
Mhm.
not humble enough, you're ignorant. And it's trying to like, same with the yin and yang symbol, where people are trying to tread the way between the yin and the yang, the way between order and chaos.
Yeah.
And I think you get like a big contrast.
Mhm.
So one of the mentors that I'm working with now, and he's and like he's a client, but he's giving me so much knowledge.
Mhm.
He's a phenomenally smart guy and successful guy, and now he's retired, and I get to use his brain a little bit. It's wonderful. And he was saying like everything you measure good and bad, everything you measure important and unimportant, is always contrasted to the unimportant.
Mm.
You know, there's a contrast to everything. So what you get when you come from a totally different culture to here is that you get to contrast this culture with the other culture.
Yeah.
So like I was, the thing that I was most thankful for is that I was raised by the beautiful lie. And that beautiful lie is we Icelandic people, we're the strongest, we're the smartest, we can do anything, nothing can stop us.
Mhm.
You know, we can outwork everybody. And like it's not true, of course, humans are just humans, but it's a lie that gives you great power.
Mhm.
But then it's also your weakness.
Right.
You know, and you come to a different culture in the beginning, you rub people the wrong way and you're arrogant, and do you know what I mean? And you learn a different lesson here.
Mhm.
So like for me, I'm this beautiful line between the Canadian modesty, the Canadian humbleness, and the Icelandic we shall rule the world. It's a beautiful place to be.
Mm.
And I think we need a lesson. So for everything, we need a lesson of contrast. That's really what I'm trying to say.
Right.
So like lifting heavy will get you good at lifting heavy, but
Mhm.
you can't lift heavy all the time.
No.
You also have to lift something light often enough so you can develop form.
Mhm.
So reading hard books is very hard, but sometimes, and that's just the lesson I learned this year, I step back from reading incredibly intellectually demanding books for a little bit so I can sector, so I can digest. It's not enough to just jam food in your belly, you gotta digest it too.
Mhm.
What do you think about that?
I agree with those sentiments where, you know, when we're trying to develop something like that, or let's say when we put ourselves into a brand new situation, like you came from Iceland, came here to Canada, and you kind of incorporated the Canadian modesty into your own kind of
Somewhat.
philosophy of life.
Little bit.
Somewhat.
I'm working on it.
Working on it, right.
Yeah.
So, well, it's always a lifelong process.
Yeah.
But trying to incorporate that, I think part of that comes down to being able to critically think about the situations we're into. So, you know, it's one thing to be thrust into a situation and not know what's going on, and you know, still just bulldozing your way through with your own old
Will.
Yeah. But it's a whole other thing to start to incorporate things around you, which goes back to what we were talking about in the first part of the conversation we're having, where you know your environment will drive your adaptation.
Yes.
Right. So if you came from Iceland and came here and still only operated out of that mindset of we will conquer the world, what do you think would have been the outcome?
Well, this is the outcome. Like I'm very successful at what I do.
Right. But you, when coming here, you started to incorporate those other aspects of Canadian culture as well.
It happens very slowly.
It does. It is an incremental
I
process.
realized that like part of it is personality,
Right.
and part of it is culture.
Yeah.
So like we have this thing where personality and genetics and culture they come together.
Mhm.
That's like when people say it's all genetic. No, it's like ask what a gene does in a particular environment.
Right.
A gene will do a different thing, epigenetically speaking,
Mhm.
in a cold than a warm-root environment.
Right.
That's kind of how human beings are, and I realized like how insufferable I must have been when I came here.
Well, you came here and you adapted too. It's like
Yeah, that's part of it,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what exactly what I'm saying. So like, say if you want to help someone,
Mhm.
people are always looking for this guidelines, this book. They're asking you, like you were asking me for a trick.
Yeah.
For methodology. Sometimes it's just like take someone
Yeah.
and put them next to you, and you do your thing, and that's a new environment.
Yeah.
So like before, I maybe started to try to affect you if I could, and I'm not special or anything. You thought you can only be strong if you're fat.
Yeah. So for everybody listening out there,
Let's get a little context.
Let's
yeah.
give some context. So, geez, how long ago? 2 years?
Yeah.
Since I started this thing, 3 years? 2 years.
Something like that.
Something like that. Anyways,
Doesn't really matter.
some arbitrary amount of time before. When I was working at that old job, I weighed around, we'll use freedom units, so 230 pounds,
Mm-hmm.
give or take.
At your staggering
More so give.
5 foot.
At 5'10",
Yeah.
5'9",
Yeah.
so bad.
Okay, we can go with 10.
Let's go. Let's be generous and give
Yeah.
it that double digit.
Yeah.
So at 5'10",
Yeah.
weighing like 230 pounds and not muscle. Like, let's get that straight. I had what we would call the keg, right?
Okay.
Got a 6-pack.
It's no judgment on the restaurant. It's a fantastic restaurant.
Oh, it's great. Yeah. So my whole thought process behind this, when I first started competing in powerlifting back in 2013, I weighed the same as I weighed about 2 years ago, back in 2018, 2017ish. My weight went like this.
Uh-huh.
Right? 105, 93, 80, all the way down to 83 kilos, which
Yeah.
again, freedom units is like 181 pounds. Then all the way back
Freedom
up.
units.
Snap. Snap. And all the way back up to 105 kilos or 230 pounds. So I was doing this because I had this goal in mind of squatting a particular number, which was 500 pounds. I tried as hard as I could at the time, which was
Not that hard.
Not that hard. And I couldn't get that close. I had a hard time cracking like mid 400s. So I just decided to eat and get fat. So I got fatter and fatter and fatter. My squats started going up and going up and going up. But, relative strength was worse than what I was before. Like, a 500-pound squat at 230-pound body weight is, it's not that great.
Not if you're, like, let's put it in context. If you're a power.
If you're a power lifter.
But if you're just a guy who's not specifically training for powerlifting, it's awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
But, like, you're a competitive powerlifter.
Yeah, and at the time I was training, like, for competition sake.
Yeah.
Like, as opposed to now where I'm kind of experimenting a little bit. But back then, that was the end goal, was powerlifting competition.
Yeah.
So when you kind of pulled me out of the matrix and I started working here, you kind of put that little seed in my head, like, maybe you don't have to be fat to be able to be strong. And I was like, okay, so I'll give it a shot. And I started losing weight, dropped about 30 pounds, and my squat actually rose. I was able to squat 500 at a lower body weight, or an entire weight class lower, which was, again, about 25, 30 pounds difference.
That's exactly what I'm saying to people. Like, where does this lie come from that you have to be fat to be strong? And when I say fat, I mean heavy.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, I bench press exactly the same now at 210 as I do at 240.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a thought and error process there.
I think a lot of it has to do, and this can actually branch off into a bunch of different topics too, but like a big hive mind mentality or like mob mentality, where
So he said it, I'm just going to do it, it must be true.
Yeah, like I went on the internet on Reddit, or I went on bodybuilding forums, and a bunch of dudes in their like early 20s, late teens told me I couldn't gain weight on my squat without putting on weight on my body weight, so I just believed it.
Because that's not how adaptation works at all.
No, and it's like
Strength is a skill.
and it comes down to, have you tried the alternative?
Like, do you know how to train?
Yeah, like, have you actually put in enough effort that you know that 100% certainty? And I didn't, so I tried it, and it worked.
Yeah, like, you got lighter, and I just told you that
Yep.
you saw what a dad bod like me was crushing in an hour, how amount of reps and sets and so on.
Mm.
And then you maybe start to think, how hard am I working over the week?
Yeah, are those 3 sets of 3
Really enough
really
to get?
enough?
Yeah.
The answer is no.
No, it's not.
No.
You have to work a lot harder than people think.
Mhm.